our members who don't know goals. So we're talking. Thanks for joining us. You could be anywhere, but you chose to be here with us. We are here talking today with Angelique Iles, the author of Kentree's Stolen Souls. So for our members who don't know you yet, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I wrote a book about a 28-year-old witch and her talking cat, so that probably gives you an idea of my maturity level. I never want to grow up, and I don't think anybody should have to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are a big nature lover and plant lover.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a
Yeah.
bit about your love for all things nature and how it inspires you?
Well, I have a modest garden at my place, but I've managed to cram like every perennial plant that will survive in this climate into that tiny space. And I do get criticized from my neighbors often about the state of my garden because it does look kind of like somebody just abandoned it. But no, every inch of it has been like perfectly prepared to look as crazy as it does. But there's loads of bees and there's toads that live in there. There's even rabbits that live in there now in this tiny space. So yeah, that definitely, like, being on your hands and knees weeding for hours on end is very like good at getting those creative juices flowing when you're thinking about, what's going to happen in this chapter? How do I solve this problem? While you're just pulling the grass, you're thinking, oh, wouldn't this be cool if this happened? Yeah.
Totally.
And I mean, I even wrote another book that's like gardening for magic creatures.
Right.
And it's all inspired by my garden. It's all creating a garden of perennial plants, but in a world where pixies and gnomes and fairies really exist, and how you might create a garden to attract them. It's just like gardening for birds, bees, and butterflies, except magical creatures.
That's awesome. Would you say that you have a favorite plant in your garden?
No, how could you choose a favorite? Although, well, I mean, if it's for making tea, lemon balm is my favorite for making tea because it smells delicious, it tastes delicious, and it's pretty easy to grow. But it's not like very showy, so maybe a daylily.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can also eat a daylily. The petals are delicious.
That's true.
Yeah.
I've been gardening for the last couple of years with my own home now, and learning how many of my plants are actually edible has been a very big journey for me. And some of them are not the tastiest things, but even like hostas grow really well here and are secretly edible. And yeah,
very good, like delicious in the spring. Yeah, they're better than asparagus, I would say. Yeah. I'm very food motivated. I'm like a dog. Like if I'm offered treats, I will do tricks. So like that was probably what helped me start gardening. I was like, wait a minute, these flowers are also like food. So yeah, definitely a big reward is getting to like snack in your garden.
Absolutely. Yeah. My cherry tomatoes and my marigolds were like my biggest yield last year. My marigolds exploded. I had no idea. And of course they're great for the garden too, and secretly edible.
So what do you do with marigolds? I didn't know about that. What do you do with a marigold?
I just use them to make things, like make food look prettier. Like they're totally edible.
Oh, okay.
The flowers themselves are edible.
Yeah.
They have a fairly neutral taste, but yeah, like sprinkle them on a salad to really jazz that up with that beautiful red gold
pop of color.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a big color enthusiast.
Yeah, that's my mom's rule. It's a meal should have at least 3 colors.
That's a good rule.
Yeah.
I don't think I would enjoy a meal that was not colorful.
All beige, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very appealing.
No.
So you, like, the pandemic played a large part in you becoming a published author. I mean, you're self-published. Can you tell us a bit about how the pandemic played into that and what that journey was like for you?
Well, I won the COVID lottery when I bought a property in 2021. Like everybody else who wanted to buy property in 2021, I was like, can't afford any of these houses. Uh, but I did see a beautiful old church for sale for half of the price of a house. So I bought a church. And
Oh,
then winter happened, and I realized all those beautiful stained glass windows are not so easy to heat.
no.
It's basically like having your windows open all winter long. So
Yeah.
we realized we couldn't really afford to live there long term. So at the end of the year, we sold it again in 2022 when the prices had gone even higher. And so I won a nice sum of money with that property and used it to take a year off. And I wrote the first book, Kentree Stolen Souls, and I think I was probably about halfway into the second one before I started working again. So I definitely took advantage of that unexpected COVID surprise to do some serious writing.
Cool. And so
Yeah.
you do maintain like a day job. Is your day job something that allows you to continue to write? Do you find that it's
Yeah, I just
fulfilling?
started working at the Ottawa Humane Society, so I
Oh,
literally get to reunite cats and dogs to like their second chance home, and that's a part-time job, so it's the best of all worlds. I still have time to write, I get to play with cats at work, and I get to see like animals going into their forever homes. Like I can't believe how much life has changed. Like I was miserable years ago. I was just like the character in my book. Like she's kind of miserable at the start, and then she discovers she's a witch and everything changes. I kind of feel like that'll happen to me too somehow. I guess you draw what you put out there.
that's right. Yeah. Cool. Um, so being self-published, would you say that you have any advice for authors, future novelists looking to get into self-publishing or the publishing world?
Yeah, I see a lot of people posting things like about how frustrated they are that they're not instantly successful. And yeah, we're not gonna be instantly successful. Nobody is. I think Yaros with Fourth Wing, I think that was like her 14th book or something that she'd published. So the idea that you're going to explode on your first indie published book, we probably shouldn't have that expectation. Write because you like it. And if you don't, then probably stop writing. And really the one thing, like I've met some other indie authors, and I think the most important thing is getting other people to read your book before you decide to press publish. Don't just trust your own judgment. You really need to have like as many eyeballs as you can find reading your book. Does the story work? Typos are one thing, but the story has to hold together, right? So just because you're on your own doesn't mean you should actually do it on your own. Still get as much help as you can. Yeah.
Okay. And so you mentioned your new part-time job. You're a big animal lover. Does being
Yes.
an animal lover impact your writing?
Well, I didn't have a cat when I was writing Country's Stolen Souls. So I wanted to hang out with a cat despite not having one. One of the main characters, coincidentally, is a talking cat. So I get to hang out with a cat while I'm writing. His name is Pal, and he's the main character is like sidekick, but also moral compass. He always knows what's right, even if Eliza's kind of not quite making the right decisions. He's always kind of guiding her into what she should do. Um, and yeah, a lot of people like his little sassy attitude. I didn't realize I was totally ripping off Salem from Sabrina the Teenage Witch until until after I'd written it. I watched that show when I was a teenager. I did not remember the cat really, but I guess I did do a talking black cat who, yeah, is probably very similar to Salem.
I would say Salem veers towards being a little more morally corrupt in a lot of ways. So,
Yeah,
it's a little
but
different.
very opinionated. Yes,
Very.
I think probably a lot of unconscious kind of influences came from different places. Yeah.
I think that's fair. There's a lot of excellent source material from that period of time.
Yeah, well, that's why I like seeing when in a review it says like, oh, Kentree Stolen Souls is so nostalgic, or like it has nostalgic vibes, all these things that form part of the millennial experience of like growing up in the 90s and the noughties. They all kind of weave in and out. I have one of my characters, Darren Angel. He's very inspired by Chris Angel, who was like this icon when I was a kid. I
Yeah.
had a friend who had a huge crush on him. So he's like one of the bigger characters in the second book. And yeah, it's just all these like little influences that are kind of like nods to the 90s.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you do anything fun to celebrate the release of your books? Did you take yourself out for dinner or
Yeah,
a party?
I'm sure I do that. I'm a pretty good celebrator. I do enjoy any bubbly kind of drink. So nothing quite sticks out. I think I celebrate pretty often and pretty openly. But the second book, Country's Haunted Halls, I did do an actual book launch and we had some people come. It was really cool, like meeting people who'd read the first book who I'd never met before and hearing kind of their thoughts and yeah, that they came back for the second one. That's so gratifying. Obviously you did something right if they're coming back.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. Yeah. There was cookies, there was champagne, it was fun.
And we're kind of catching you between book 2 and book 3, yes?
Yeah, I've just
So
barely started writing the third one, and it's going to be a trilogy, so I really have to stick the landing. There's a lot of pressure that I'm sure I'm putting on myself, but I have my outline. I've started writing the first draft, but of course, it's a very long road from the first draft to the final product. But yeah, I really hope that I can like seal the whole story in a way that's really satisfying to everybody who sticks with it the whole way.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned that you kind of have an idea. Would you say that when you sit down to write, you kind of know, the ending before, and then you kind of
Yeah,
find your way through, or do your characters guide you? Like,
it's a mix of everything. Like my main character, before I started writing the first one, I knew what her 3-book arc was going to be, but all there's other characters who get introduced throughout the story and they start to develop their personalities, and then they want to go and do other things too while the main character is doing her things, and it all kind of starts to interweave in a way that maybe you didn't quite plan at the beginning, but then when you're going through as the second draft, you're going, wait a minute, this is very interesting. Like this theme is kind of repeating itself in places that I hadn't planned to put it. And so as you refine the story, you kind of make that a little bit more like look like it was on purpose. But yeah, the characters have a way to surprise you. And I also really take a lot of feedback from the readers. So I took a lot of feedback from the first one, what people wanted. A lot of people really want romance, and they wanted romance with a character that I had kind of written to be a very horrible, mediocre, garbage man.
Oh gosh.
But I don't know why so many people wanted that to actually click, but I was like, okay, let's see if we can make it happen. And I tried. The chemistry I just couldn't get them quite to where they needed to be in the second one. But there's definitely a bit more like saucy flirtiness just to kind of appease that, where's the romance in this book? Yeah, so I do take a lot of feedback from people.
Amazing. Well, tell us about Kentree's Stolen Souls, and can you share what inspired it?
Yeah. Kentree's Stolen Souls is Liza Paladin is disillusioned with normal life. She is frustrated with her job. She's just not her life isn't as magical as she'd want it to be. She grew up reading fantasy and she had these ideas that life was going to be this great adventure. And instead, it's not. She just goes to work and she goes home and she talks to her cat, and that's it. Then she gets to discover she's a witch and she's invited to a school to learn to hone her powers. And a dark force threatens to take away the very powers that have given her life meaning. So other students are losing their magical abilities, and it's a little bit of a mystery that needs to be solved. And I guess, yeah, I was pretty inspired. Oh, the school setting is in old renovated churches, which one might say is very inspired by the church that changed my life.
Cool. Why did you decide on a 28-year-old receptionist as your main character?
She was going to be older, but then she kept making a lot of self-deprecating age. She's very self-conscious about her age. And I don't actually know that many older people who are self-conscious about their age, but you always get these annoying 25-year-olds who go, oh my God, I'm so old. And everybody at the table is in like their 30s looking at them like, shut up. So I kind of wanted her to be that annoying person in their 20s who thinks she's so old. So I didn't take away any of these comments about her being old. I made her younger so that it would be more funny. And people say she's immature for her age, but I was 28 once, and I'm pretty sure I was immature too.
Yeah.
So I don't think 28-year-olds really have it all figured out. So I like where I settled, because a lot of fantasy books start with the main character. If it's a girl, she's turning 16 in the first few chapters. And that's great, but I was 16 a long time ago. I want fantasy that's more geared to older people, or at least make it possible that you could discover your magical abilities older, you know. The idea that it's over just because, you know, I'm older, that's sad. So that's why she's a little older. She's not so old, but she thinks of herself as being too old to be where she is. But yeah, that's why we get to laugh at her a little bit.
Can you tell us a bit about the Kentree Institute of Magic and what magic we can expect to find there?
So it's located in 3 old repurposed churches. One of them is being used for classrooms, one of them's dorms, and one of them is the mess hall. Basically, it's where people eat or study. And it's on an island surrounded by gardens. It's a beautiful setting. And there's, oh my goodness, there's so many classes. You can learn to manipulate the elements, so control rain, fire, wind, or you can raise the dead. There's a necromancy course where you can talk to ghosts. There's a course to use a wand to do simple spells. There's herbalism, so you can learn how to use different magic, how to use different plants, and eventually have those plants like grow at super speed, which is every gardener's dream, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of there's fortune telling as well. There's a lot of different magic, because Kentree is set kind of in between the US and Canada, in a bit of a wildernessy area. On the map, it's just pure islands, so I think that's a great place to hide a school for magic. And we're kind of a hodgepodge of cultures, so I think it's appropriate that it wouldn't just have one branch of magic that's the main thing. You know, every teacher has their own kind of speciality, their own little twist, because it's people coming from all over the world, have settled to Canada. They all have their own different little quirks for magic, and that's why there's like such a great course offering at Kentree.
Cool. Why did you decide to mix a dash of real-life magic theory into your magic system?
Well, why not? There's so many real rituals like pagan, Wicca. I've read runes since I was, I think, 15, 16. So, it's stones with runes written on them, and you use them to kind of tell the future, kind of like tarot cards. So there's already all this wonderful lore and real rituals, and you don't need to invent everything from the ground up. And it's really cool. I had one lady who came up. She said, I just started reading your book last week. She says, I love that it's almost as much a how-to guide as it is a fantasy story. She's like, that's real stuff. That's what I actually do. So, it's just kind of, I wanted to be inclusive to people who identify as witches without kind of overstepping and going too much like, is Wicca or pagan, like, is that more religious? Not too sure, but I tried to just take kind of the fun elements of it and just go beyond, like, okay, well, how far could this really go if magic is real? Then it's not just in our heads. It's not just a ritual, and then you hope that something might happen by chance. Yeah.
So we love book animals, or animals in books, and book animals. Can you tell
Yeah.
us a bit about your snarky black cat?
Yeah, Pal originally was going to be a big white cat. But in the writing process, sometimes your characters don't like what you're assigning them to. And he wanted to be a small black cat, small enough that he could be perching on Eliza's shoulder at various points in the book. And he does a lot of I enjoy writing the cat mannerisms. He'll be bread loafing at some point, or he'll be I think in the second book, he brings Eliza a dead mouse, and she's like, what do you want me to do with that? So if you could actually have that conversation with the cat, like, what would they be saying to each other? So yeah, I enjoy bringing those real cat things. He just randomly will attack her ankles. It's not a big part of the story. It's just a little sentence here and there, but I think it just adds so much color. You get to see this little cat doing catty things. He's smart, but it doesn't take away the cat from him.
Now that you're working with the Humane Society, do you find inspiration for new animals to write about?
I'm toying with introducing some rabbits into the third one because we have a lot of rabbits. People don't think about going to the Humane Society when they want to adopt a rabbit. I don't think it's not one of the pets that just comes to mind when you think, oh, I want to give a second home, a second chance to an animal. And we have lots of rabbits, and they're the ones who actually stay the longest at the Humane Society. So I thought, yeah, a little bit of adding some rabbits, and what's a rabbit personality and how could that work? I'm still in the first draft. I haven't really figured it out, but I think, yeah, of course you want to use your writing to kind of have some kind of influence on the reader and yeah, bringing that to mind a little bit. But yeah, it's still very much a work in progress. I do really like the idea for another series though with dogs. I've been getting much better at dog training, kind of getting command of a dog who's jumping around. Oh, wouldn't that be great if there was a character who's a dog trainer, and then they get transported to another world where they have to use these skills to, I don't know, tame griffins or something. It's just, yeah, it's definitely inspiring pieces of ideas that haven't really come to fruition yet. But yeah, something's going on in there.
Well, since we're on the subject of magical animals, are there other creatures that we can find in the book?
Yeah, there's one of the main characters is half fairy. Her name is Faye. Very original, I know, but it goes with the character. There's a part Yeti, part Bigfoot called Mashu, who's another very big character in the series. And we get to learn more about the Bigfoot culture in Kentree's haunted halls, and hear a lot about where he's from and how their society works. And I had a lot of fun writing those bits. And they all have great names. So Mashu Menenge is a name of 2 different volcanoes, and then everybody from his tribe, they're all named after different volcanoes around the world. So they're just like really cool, unique names. Yeah, and then Eliza has gnomes in her garden, and we have leprechauns. And in the 3rd book, there will be a dragon. We're working our way there. There's some foreshadowing. He's coming.
Okay.
I think I'm losing my voice.
I know. Sometimes I work from home and then I have to speak and I'm like, I don't know that my voice can do this anymore.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been since I talked that much.
Yeah. As we all know, there are tons of books about magical schools out there. What do you feel set Kentree apart from the rest, and what are you hoping readers find there?
I don't know that I need to be set apart from the rest. I think when people like crime books, they want to read crime books. I like books about magic schools. I want to read books about magic schools. It doesn't, it doesn't mean that you're unoriginal just because you're writing something that's been written before. My unique twist, I think, is there is a lot of different courses. The characters are different. I think the story has a twist that so far nobody has come forth saying that they saw it coming. Everybody's been very pleased at how surprised they were. I get messages like, oh my God, I'm reading it. I think I know who's behind it. And then they'll finish it, they'll write the review, and I'll write to them like, so did you know who it was? No, it wasn't who I thought it was at all. So that's like really cool. You want to know that you're surprising people, but with the surprise, you stop and you think, oh, actually it does make sense from the beginning. It's been there all along. I just didn't see it. So yeah, I don't know that I need to be set apart from other magic schools. I think they all have their place. They're all fun. Maybe it's just the fact that my main character's older, but she could be any age. It's just the idea is we can all learn to express our magical selves. As corny as it sounds.
I don't think that's corny. After reading the first book, what can readers expect along their journey through the rest of the series?
Yeah, the first book, it's very good as a standalone. I wanted to give people the option to just read one and walk away feeling satisfied. There's a few loose ends. So we don't quite know where Eliza's from. So she's adopted, and her birth parents are kind of a mystery, and they're a little bit hinted at. And that's really the only thread that's left unanswered at the end of the first one. And the second one is very much her birth parents, one of them literally coming back to haunt her as her birth mother is no longer with us. But when you have a school where necromancy is one of the classes, that doesn't necessarily stop somebody from coming back to say hi and try to manipulate you. So we have a bit more of sinister, ghostly presence in the second one.
Okay, cool. You designed your own cover. And
yes,
can you tell us about that, like what that decision was, and just kind of all about what that was like for you?
Yeah, it's a decision I'm still coming to terms with. I'm looking at hiring somebody to do a different cover to see if that makes a difference to my online sales. In person, I'm doing pretty well, but online, I feel like they should be a bit more than where they are. So my cover, I think, is a little dark considering it's a fun book. It's supposed to be lighthearted. So I think people are thinking it's going to be more of a dark theme kind of book. But I did the doodle of the girl with the cat and her wand, and then I just So I like it. I think it's nice. I like the vibe, but I'm probably going to hire somebody to do another version that's a little bit more girly, probably a little more flowery, like the Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I really like that cover with the mushrooms, something similar to that. Yeah. I like the doodle because everything's so perfect now, you know, like AI has everything is polished, I'd say, and I think like a hand-drawn doodle with all the little mistakes, it just shows a real human touched it. I thought that was kind of fun and whimsical, but yeah, I did it too dark, I think. Still working on it. That's the problem with being an indie author. You have to invent everything yourself.
That makes sense. That would be hard.
Yeah.
And like I read about you designing your cover and that it was a decision to show that you don't take yourself and that the book doesn't take itself too seriously, and that made a lot of sense, like with what you're trying to demonstrate with the cover. And yeah, but it's all
so
on you.
I think I think I would like to keep the doodle that I made like integrated into whatever the next design would be, just to keep that that rawness to it. I mean, the second one, I really love my doodle. I only did it once. So there's once I didn't even like look at, oh, it's over here. Look at that leg. It's all smooshed. I didn't fix it.
I don't think you need
it's a real doodle. How many times do you get to see a real doodle on a cover? Never.
So, what are you working on now?
Well, the third one, but not too much. I'm actually playing Hogwarts Legacy right now, if I'm honest. That's what I'm working on the most. It's probably eating up too many of my hours, but I really love flying my broom around the school.
That's nice.
Yeah. But yeah, the third and final one of the Kentree series, Kentree's Wicked Witch. I'm working on that, and it's very slow going. Yeah. It's mostly Hogwarts Legacy.
Do you have any future projects in mind already that you have thought about?
Yeah, I really want kind of a universe jumping book. I love the idea of a character who feels like she's in the wrong time, like the wrong time period. A character who feels like hello.
My fault.
Yeah, so but if you go back in time, it wasn't a great time for women in the past either. So I'm thinking, wow, what if you'd sent this character into kind of an alternate universe where, I have lots of ideas, like the Griffin Tamer as well and things like that, but nothing outlined yet. I really want to finish Kentree before I jump into another huge project. I thought I'd write a few more mini books, like the Garden for Magic Creatures, because they're fun, they're light, and they're really short. So it's really just for me to enjoy writing without as much pressure as putting a whole novel together. Yeah. So I had one that was like house plants for witches, you know, maybe like the lore of what different house plants, you know, like pothos is reputed to be like a money plant. Like the more your pothos grows, the more your bank account grows. So kind of doing a collection of the lore of houseplants, or maybe the witch's tea garden. So a guide to herbs for your garden, but with that kind of witchy vibe. So I've started writing those as well, but no plans to finish quite yet. So there's a lot going on in my brain.
And since you've gone through the journey of self-publishing, would you say that you would continue down this kind of path? And you mentioned that you recently, like you mentioned to me before we started, that you have made the switch from being exclusively on Amazon, and now you'll be available on Kobo as well.
Yeah, so Kentree Stolen Souls, the first one, is now available on Kobo, but also a lot of other platforms. I thought I was with extended distribution through Amazon, but it turns out that was not the case. So I've changed everything around for Kentree Stolen Souls. It's now widely available, I think, on all the e-readers. I think I've covered them all. It should also be available through libraries. And it's at Barnes and Nobles now, and yeah, a few other places. I haven't done it all for Kentree's Haunted Halls yet because Kindle has the useful free ebook promotions, which have been really good at getting me new readers. And I didn't really want to give that up entirely until I was sure that I would get readers on those other platforms. So far, it's only been a couple weeks. There's a few sales on the Kobo, but I'm not actually sure that there's more sales on the Kobo than what I would have done with the Kindle Unlimited. I wouldn't self-publish again, though. I'm going to finish the Kentree series as a self-published author, and the hope is to use it as like a CV to say, like, when I write the next book, first of all, my writing's going to be better because I've had all this practice and all this feedback, and one just gets better the more one does things.
Yes.
I hope.
We hope.
So I'm hoping I'll send the next, into the next novel to a publisher and say, look, I have a trilogy that I self-published, so I've got the staying power to actually finish a project that I start. I also have this many sales. I'll be able to give those numbers, and hopefully I have something of a fan base that'll follow me to the next series. So hopefully these things will help a publisher with that decision to put their faith in me. So yeah, my thought is I'll finish Kentree as an indie, keep going through those hoops, but hopefully I won't have to do it alone with the next one.
And this is probably my favorite question that we ask authors. What do you hope that readers take from Kentree's Stolen Souls?
I really just want them to, when you get to the last page, I just kind of want you to go.
It's like the silent reaction.
Smile. Yeah, it's just a little bit of joy, It's not one of these books that I love. Book talkers are so dramatic, Oh my God, this book had me crying or screaming, or no, I just want it to be a fun, cute read that leaves you with a smile on your face when you finish it. That's all I want. A little escape from the world that can be stressful and sad and difficult. A book that, just makes you happy for a little while.
That's awesome. How do Nesties find you and find your book?
Well, I am on Instagram at Kentree's Stolen Souls. You can get Kentree Stolen Souls on the Kobo, Kindle, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I'm through Indigo as well. Indigo chapters, depending on which branch is in your neighborhood. And yeah, I think it should be pretty easy to get Kentree Stolen Souls. I'm pretty much everywhere. Right now, there's a free Kindle promotion for Garden for Magic Creatures. So if anybody is out there and watching this and wants to test out my writing without committing to the full novel, you can get that little ebook for free now until Sunday. And yeah, I'm in Ottawa, so if you hang out in Ottawa, maybe we'll run into each other.
That's always a possibility.
I'm at a lot of places. I'm constantly doing markets and book signings, so I'm all over. I'll have to come to Kingston next.
Please do. We are huge book enthusiasts here, and we love connecting with authors in person as much as possible. Even though the internet is a wonderful place where we get to do it, it is amazing when we get to meet people face to face too.
Well,
okay.
And face to face, it goes better. You make better connections, I think.
Yes, it's very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the Nest for hosting us, and for all of the Nesties for being here. Our next author chat is happening tomorrow, March 21st at 8 p.m. and we'll be with Neely Tubati Alexander, who is the author of In a Not So Perfect World. And thank you, Angelique. It was great talking to you and
Thank
chatting
you.
with you and learning about your book.
Oh, it was awesome. I love talking about myself.
Okay.